Hope everyone had a fantastic weekend and you're enjoying this cool chill. And what a delight. Yeah, what a delight it is to be here for our final budget work session. Let me just kind of calibrate us. On tomorrow, we are meeting with the goal of adopting the 2023 budget. We've consistently done that every year on time, and that's the charge that is before us today. I believe that there may be a few remaining questions. Madam Administrator, members of the commission, we'll try to address those as expeditiously as possible. I believe that there's a single source document that's been handed to us that addresses some of the lingering items for discussion. But if you've got questions, certainly let's get in the queue. Administrator Dowse, why don't you walk us through your memo, and then we'll take any questions. I do want to remind everyone that on last week and once again on today, you've got presented three options. We had a focused conversation around the $382,000, and that'll lead largely our discussion on today. Okay. All right. With that, Administrator Dowse.
Good morning, Commissioners. So this budget work session, as the Mayor has already mentioned, will go over some key points in which you requested during the last session. My memo outlines, one, you've already received answers to the questions that were posed during the work session on November 7th. And two, the additional budget options that were requested also during the budget work session on November 7th have been outlined in Exhibit A, which has been emailed to you, and each of you also have a hard copy. I'll walk through some of those, which include three different options. Of course, you can select either of the three or create your own, but at this particular point, option A details all of the amendments that were discussed during the budget work session on Monday, which include personnel for state court, the district attorney, as well as Serenity Mental Health, the Public Defender's Office, and the Augusta Public Library. Those amendments total $382,000. As those were not funded in the proposed budget, I have proposed cuts to the proposed budget, which would cover the $382,000 need. Option B is pretty much the same as well. It does not require delaying positions to April 1st. Instead, positions are proposed to be delayed to March 1st. It does increase the miscellaneous adjustment amount to a little over $42,000, as well as we found a reduction to cyber parking deck expenditures, which total about $100,000. That is because at the time the proposed budget was presented to you, we had not received the budget for the cyber parking deck, and as a result, once those numbers came in, we were able to make the necessary adjustments. Option C takes the 5 noted amendments above and gives you the option to source the $382,000 from the contingency fund. As the finance director noted to you during the last budget session, we've budgeted a little over $1 million in the contingency fund, in which those dollars, $382,000, can be sourced from the contingency fund. Tab 5 in your budget book listed proposed personnel options. To make it a little easier for you, all of those proposed personnel additions have been included at the bottom of Exhibit A. Mayor Davis, that is a high-level overview of my attachment. I would also like to point out, before I conclude, Mock Academy's need is not included in the listing of option A, B, or C. We are proposing to take $100,000 from Parks and Recreation's existing budgeted line items. So now, Mayor Davis, that concludes the high-level overview of my budget memo.
Thank you very much. Chair recognizes the Commissioner from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The rest of the committee. Mr. Mayor, I want to speak to Administrator Dowse, if you don't mind.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
Administrator Dowse, I want to kind of run all of the budget amendments to you and COE in order here before I make my suggestion. State court personnel, district attorney, Serenity Health, public defender, Augusta Public Library, Mock Academy, and the state court accountability court. That's all of the amendments that is the corner in that as well?
The list that you just gave, Commissioner, are all of the budget amendments that my office has received.
Okay.
The position for the coroner's office was already proposed in the original budget.
Thank you. So that address that address all of the budget amendments what I just mentioned in other. So now, what would it take to go ahead on and start all of this January 1? That's not an option here, but I'm proposing it as an option because I think some of the positions that you're asking to start at a later time officially could become problematic, even though nobody starts daily on whether it's January 1, March 1, or April 1. So what is a way that you can do all of this January 1?
An additional $630,000 would be needed if you're proposing pulling Mock Academy out of Parks and Recreation, as well as funding State Court Accountability Court, which was one of the items you just named.
And
We
so-
could either pose making additional cuts to the budget, but at this point, it would be what the commission would like for us to do.
No, ma'am. So hold on, excuse me. Yes, ma'am. Does that impact our conversation? If it does, I need to know before I proceed.
There was a play on words, and so I want to make certain that my comment was clear. I stated an additional $630,000, so I want to make it known that $630,000 includes all of the budget amendments that you listed. I thought that was clear when I stated that, but if not, I wanted to make certain that that was clear.
And so, per the mayor's conversation to me, said you let it be known that you found $100,000 in the recreation department's budget, and so that reduces it by $100,000.
The $100,000 came from a difference in the parking deck budget. So there was an additional, if you note on Exhibit A, there's a reduction to the cyber parking deck expenditures of $100,000. So if you include that, then we can decrease, actually, if you include that plus another $50,000 that was noted in the front of my memo, although not listed on Exhibit A, Mock Academy tennis expansion needs will be funded by use of $50,000 from the general fund, which was funding previously allocated to the Fifth Street Bridge. So you could easily take the $630 and subtract $150,000 from that.
Okay, but I was made mention. You first mentioned $100,000 from the recreation department. I thought you said budget.
That's correct.
So now, if you do what you just said, Mr. Mayor, I didn't want to prolong this, but what you just put on there. So what you just gave us is $250,000 then, because you gave us $100,000 from the recreation department, you gave us something from the parking deck, and you gave us something for Fifth Street. When I came back and asked, all those numbers came up.
No, so your total now is $480,000 that you would need to fund.
Okay. So where would that come from if we decide to go this route and to resolve all of this?
Which route,
The
Commissioner?
$480,000. If we go ahead and start everything January 1.
Administrator Dowse, what the Commissioner from the 6th is stating, and this is a continuation from last week's discussion, that in light of what is known, instead of holding new personnel in positions until March or April, assume steady state and you're onboarding people starting 1 January, which means you're funding that. What is that number? And the whole conversation around 500,000, mock academy, whatever, put that in the parking lot, because this conversation is largely about almost $500,000. So you need to clearly express and articulate that. That's what he's asking.
Your need is $480,000 if you want to start everything January 1st, if you do not want to delay any actions.
Do you have a source for the $480,000?
Your only source would be option C, which is use of your contingency fund.
And how you define, is the contingency meaning something that normally be in the administrator's office, or something that are surplus, or something that you're going to put away to the budget? How do you define it?
And let me add this to the commission from the 6th. We're having a conversation about what we believe to be, if we adopt this budget predicated on option C, a contingency fund of about $1.2 million. Okay? All right. And should we, which I think is what the commission from the 6th is going to ask you, is if we expanded the contingency fund, assuming that's where you want to take it from, to 1.6, and you get to 1.6 because at the end of the year we're going to have a surplus, and instead of putting that 1 million away, which is what we've consistently done, take a portion of that to bring your contingency to 1.6, and that's how you pay for the 480. Donna?
Okay. I kind of back into it in a little bit different methodology that maybe sounds a little more like what we traditionally talk about. Our contingency current budget for 2023 right now is set at $1.5 million. What option C would do here is, with the addition of the almost $100,000 for accountability court, which was not included in the 382 up above, which each one of those positions that you're talking about is slated to start January the 1st. Let that kind of settle for just a little bit. So option C would then identify a couple of adjustments that we have already proposed, the parking deck change to that budget, and a few miscellaneous reductions in various departments. But it would then require, instead of $225,000 from contingency, approximately $325,000, thus reducing your budget for your contingency down from $1.5 million, reduce it down by $325,000. That's where you would start the 2023 budget year as you adopt it. If I could expound a little bit on what the mayor may be proposing, is that after you identify any surplus from 2022, which will be somewhere in the vicinity of the May, end of June timeframe, after the audit is done and the books are concluded, that you could designate a portion of that left over from 2022 to augment your contingency for 2023. You would essentially use a portion of that to add to your availability for unplanned expenditures.
Either one of those, Mr. Mayor, that would get us there, but actually, and I'll be honest, not get on out of it. I was thinking about what do you all call the fund that you're going to add to our fund balance? At the end of the year, there's going to be some additional funds, And the contingency is one thing I think you operate from, but I think also you contribute something every year to the fund balance, right? And how much is that anticipated being?
We have identified $1 million as a target that we would add to the fund balance budgeted in 2023.
Mr. Mayor, I know this is unconventional, but either one of those they're comfortable with is fine with me. Whether you're talking about putting $1 million aside and you deduct the $480,000 and put $520,000 in reserve funds, or you take the money like you were suggesting, you take the $480,000 from the contingency fund. So either one of those work for me. I think we can resolve this and we can be pretty much through.
Well, they were all your suggestions. I was just trying to help you express it.
And I appreciate it. So whichever one is they're comfortable with, because they know they behind the curtains.
I thought the wizard
they're
was.
comfortable with, I can live with that.
Yeah. Okay. I think we just want to get to a balanced budget and
Yeah.
do it on time.
In that vein, may I propose 225 from your 1.5 contingency and the other 100 moving the $1 million planned surplus down to 900,000? Would that be acceptable?
All right. So, all right. Everyone just, everybody hold that for just a second.
Because I got a question.
But we're getting extremely warm. All right. I'm going to go to the Mayor Pro Tem and then the Commissioner from the 10th.
Okay, I'm following what everybody's saying, but Madam Administrator, with this plan, we're still trying to take this 100,000 from the Parks and Recreation Department.
No,
So that's going in with what Mr. Hassan is proposing.
yes.
Okay, so I'm mixed up now. So how do we get to 400 and whatever thousand?
So I can line item it for, actually, if you look.
I mean, that's fine. I mean, at one time it was 600 and something. Now it's 480, but we're not taking the 100,000 from the Recreation Department anymore. So, and you said the 480 includes the 100?
So the listed amended requests from Commissioner Hassan, all of those totaled $630,000, which included the $150,000 needed for Mark Academy. But because we found $100,000, not found it, excuse me, but because the expenditures were reduced for the cyber parking deck by $100,000, and an additional $50,000 could come from the general fund that was previously allocated to the Fifth Street Bridge, that reduced the $630,000 number by $150,000.
Okay, so recreation is fine.
That's correct.
I can go with that.
All right. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 10th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Administrator, I would like to just get some clarification on 3 items, and it's concerning the increases. Why is there such a large increase in administrator, procurement, human resources, and animal services over the 22 budget? Why is there such an increase for the 23 budgets?
Sir, give me just one moment to take a look at those specifics.
The Administrator's Office, you look at 2020.
Each of those departments you're named are proposed to have additional positions added to them. On the bottom of the worksheet, you can see that the Administrator's Office has the grant writer position added. Procurement has 2 additional positions, and Animal Services has 1 additional position, as well as the auto allowance. Other than that, I would have to need to dig into your individual line items, but that is where the majority of the increase comes from, as well as the items that we have already discussed before related to the retention plan that has been passed and the effect of a full year of that increase on each department's budget for the salary and wage line items.
And Commissioner, in addition to that, the administrator's office budget would have actually decreased if not for the proposed grant writer position that she just stated.
Okay, I have one more clarification, please. I see on the EMS contract, excuse me, that it's affirmed $650,000. Is that where y'all gonna stay on it?
No, sir, as you know, that amount, the subsidy amount, has yet to be determined, so we've budgeted it based upon the current funding level of $650,000.
Okay, and the last question. Why are we putting nearly $54,000 into the boathouse when we're not using it? What is that for?
The boathouse still has utilities that have to be paid, and as you know, utility costs have increased substantially, so those costs are for utilities.
Okay.
And
thank you.
probably even minor repairs if need be.
Okay, no other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 7th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I guess based on this document, Serenity, we're not going to fulfill that at 75? Is that what? I know, but
The amended request that we received from Commissioner Garrett was to increase it to a total of $50,000, which would be an increase of $25,000. So the request was never a $75,000 increase.
I thought it was a $50,000 increase.
No, sir. The request
that's what
was
it says on this
$50,000.
page right here.
It should say a
$50,000.
$50,000 total.
This is from the last budget session. Original request 75,000. Amended request 50,000. Okay. Needless to say, are we keeping them at 25 or are we keeping them at 50? And
It would be 25 additional, which is a total of $50,000.
okay. So basically the amendment is just the additional amount on this document, not the total amount.
That's correct.
Okay. Help me understand Mock Academy. The $150,000 request, is that different than the $70,000 request?
Yes, the $150,000 request is for the expansion of the program to Diamond Lakes. The $70,000 request is the previous allocation that they've received in the past.
Is that a 1 year or is that an ongoing, you think, based on the discussions?
Which one, the 70 or the one?
150.
No, the 150 was funded for 2022 as well as being proposed for 2023. So no, it's an ongoing program expansion to Diamond Lakes.
Gotcha. And then the 5th Street Bridge that we talked about last, the little house there, is that still in here in the budget or did we take that back out?
The house, I don't recall.
We had the discussion about why is it in here for $50,000, I think it was, and
Well, in my budget memo details that $50,000 was taken out. Those were funds previously allocated to the 5th Street Bridge. So that's part of the $150,000 that we're proposing to add to the overall $630,000, which includes all of your budget amendments.
okay. In the document that I have, though, it says administrative recommendation $50,000 for the 5th Street Bridge, page 5 of tab 4.
That's correct. And
So-
and that had no changes have been made to that document, but my budget memo that I've given you highlights that $50,000, we're proposing to remove it.
Okay, so it's coming out of this document, is what you're saying.
It's coming out of the general fund. That's correct.
Okay. Well, again, I mean, this was printed on 11/08, and if we were going to take it out, I feel like we should have an updated copy. That's what we're doing.
Every change that was made, we have not made those corrections and given you all that final document. But that's the reason why in my budget memo, I did highlight that the $50,000 that was previously allocated to the 5th Street Bridge, we're taking it from the 5th Street Bridge and proposing to move it to Mock Academy, which therefore decreases your $630,000 need.
Okay. What was you and I talked, and you increased the demo by a certain amount. Was it 175 increase this year? Is that still in there, or is that something that we could look at possibly taking back out to get it back to what we did this year to save 175 towards the contingency?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Commissioner from the 7th,
Yes, sir.
I got a question for you.
Sure.
In light of that request, would you come back in 2023 and ask for it back?
Well, if we're gonna, I mean, we've got now access funds that we're pulling demos from multiple places now. I mean, I don't know that, and we're still increasing it much more than we. I mean, when I started, it was 40 and 400, and now we're at, I forget where we're at. I mean, like, and it's needed, but at the same respect, like, you know.
I'm just asking.
No,
I'm okay with
it. And I guess the last question I really have based on this is like, we talked about positions up here that have been in the budget for, you know, not filled positions. And as we sit here today, none of those discussions are happening if we approve this budget from the standpoint of like, or are they in here somewhere and I'm just missing the point? I'm sorry if I am, but.
No, sir, there's still 6 positions that I am proposing be deleted or abolished in my original proposed budget, so that has not changed.
Okay. And then as far as like the library, you know, I've been up here talking about it, but I'm not necessarily we have to do 100. I mean, have you had any discussions with any of those people on kind of what that 100 is needed for? And could we go to 50? And, you know, I'm sitting here just trying to help, so.
Sure, I've had conversations with the executive director of the library concerning his need, the total need of $300,000 versus the $200,000 that was originally proposed. And if you don't want to go the entire $100,000, I'm sure he can make adjustments based upon the line items that he listed that he would be utilizing those funds for.
Okay.
Commissioner from the 7th, you mind
Yes.
if I?
Go ahead.
I'm going to come to you and the administrator regarding this. I left the legislature in 2014, 31 December 2014, and I believe it was my 2nd year as mayor. The state's approach then was to, I don't have a better word because it sounds bad, but to start defunding libraries and push that off to local governments. And we made an effort to try to step in and augment the shortfall in funding that they were getting from the state. My question to you, Mr. Chairman, and the members of the commission is, why would we do anything less than one of our most important resources in the city when it comes to public libraries and the need that they have? And if you're trying to find an additional 100,000 or whatever, why not take the demo money and repurpose that to help bolster what they're trying to get done in the libraries?
Well, there was obviously a reason we didn't fund it at the 300,000 level in the beginning. I mean, I'm trying to be sensitive to that to help them, but understanding there's lots of needs and not enough money. I mean,
well, right, but potentially there's an additional 175 that you wanted to claw back. We've not funded libraries in the city of Augusta for as long as I've been a citizen here. First, it was the state's responsibility, and then when the state started, again, defunding that and pushing that to the local communities, we went through this whole split with Columbia and Richmond County for libraries, and they decided to establish their own library system where we were, in fact, a joint one, kind of like what we've done with the courts. I would suggest that if there's the resource, and it sounds like there very well could be, using dollars that we're already discussing, then let's make sure we bolster that and provide whatever we need to do that. Great questions, but I think there's a way for us to do that.
I'm only one. I'm just asking the questions based on kind of the discussions that we've had about, you know, I'm in full support of getting these positions started quickly because I think that's the right thing to do. But I also have to realize that, you know, next year's going to be even tougher sitting up here. And so I really don't have any other questions, sir.
Okay. All right, I'm going to hold on that library conversation. I don't want it to get lost in the discussion. Madam Administrator, what level are they being funded at pursuant to that request?
The original proposed
Yes.
$200,000.
And that is what is being proposed to date?
Yes.
Okay.
Had a
And the
clarity.
request was actually 300.
Excuse me. The $100,000, which would increase them to their full ask of $300,000, that is included in the $630,000 total need.
Okay, so we've already accomplished that.
That's correct.
Okay. I thought I understood that, but I was following the line of questioning here.
Can I get a
All right.
clarity question real fast?
Yes, please.
Sorry, Commissioner. I just have to ask this one more time. I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but just asking. What is the difference between the Fifth Street Fund ending 480 that's 50,000 and the Fifth Street Fund? I mean, why is it 50,000 on one document and 150 on the other? I guess they're both 480.
One is general fund
Okay.
and one is capital.
Capital. The 150 is the capital.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Okay, before I give it to the commissioner from the 6th, Madam Administrator and team, there have been a series of amendment conversations that we've had. While you've not updated the slides, you have provided us with a evergreen amendment memo. And so on tomorrow, when we have the printed budget that is on the desk for everyone, that we ultimately will work towards adoption. What I would like to see happen is that we have a single document, again, prepare for publication for each member of the commission that list the amendments as discussed, okay? So that there's clarity of what we've done. Commissioner from the 6th.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Two things, Mr. Mayor. I just want to make mention, and my colleague from the 7th is exactly right. The number was $400,000 in terms of demo, if I understand this question. But also realize that $400,000 was something that we was getting from the landfill. I mean, from the environmental services. And so we're probably not in shape to give that anymore. So you probably need to consider leaving that 175 that's coming from general fund. Let that be, because we know they're not able to get it. But that's where that started at. The other thing, when we're talking about the $300,000, that's the library request. As you know, we have a new director, and actually, in meeting with him, his ask was much, much more. And so the $300,000 was the previous director that she came before, and that was her ask. So we're not even going beyond what his need was, because I think his might have been $1 million and something based on what he wanted to do. So I think the $300,000 is sufficient. To be mindful, there was very little improvement on a building that's 2.5 times larger than what it previously was. Nothing sustained it. So I think what we've done here overall, and if we go with what we are talking about now, a way to find that $480,000, I think we ought to be pretty much good to go, Mr. Mayor. I don't think we got much room to move anything additional around at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I've never met our new ED, but it's my understanding that he's in the room. And so welcome. Yep. We're,
Everyone, thank you for keeping the library on the forefront. There are a lot of needs for the library. And with my vision, I feel as though
would you please come forward and introduce yourself? Yeah. I just want him to introduce himself. That's all.
I mean, somebody didn't show up at the meeting.
Yeah. If you'll just introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, distinguished gentlemen and ladies. I am Emmanuel Sinclair Mitchell. I am the new library director for Augusta Richmond County Public Library System.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Madam Administrator.
Mayor Davis, there's a couple of other items that were not listed, that were not noted, particularly the deleted proposed compliance director increase, as well as some miscellaneous adjustments that I will make certain will be included on the memo that you all will receive tomorrow. They're on the memo today, but just to make certain that you have a comprehensive document tomorrow, all noted additions and deletions will be included for your review.
That would be fantastic. Are there any other questions that we have from any member? All right, if everybody can just suspend for just a moment. There's a question. Okay. Okay. So as we track towards tomorrow, we will have copies of the final budget document ready to include a comprehensive memo that shows all of the amendments that have been discussed and or vetted to date. And we'll be prepared to have this conversation on tomorrow in an effort to close this out. If there's no additional questions from any member of the commission, this work session stands adjourned.